Well, and this week's Parsha, it's in Sefer Gvuras Hashem, discusses the Yosef being the prototype, the first Jew going down to Mitzrayim, as well as all the different pitchifkas, which means all of the things that happened specifically to Yosef as he went down to Egypt. Which means, the Maharal says, don't think that anything about Golus Mitzrayim was by chance. Yosef went at the age of 17. There's a good reason for that. He stayed the number of years that he stayed. It had to be that way. The fact that it was him and not anybody else of his brothers, it had to be that way. Every single part of the Golus, as well as, of course, the Geula. I mean, everything that came and Klal Yisrael were taken out, as 10 Makkos, Kriyas Yam Suf, everything was by divine providence. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made everything happen klur. You should know going into Mitzrayim was the same thing. Let's learn a little bit about this. So you'll find it on the page where it says V'davke Yosef Mishar Achiv. Let's start with that. We're going to go through a couple of points. Maybe what we don't finish today we'll do next week on this subject. Why was Yosef the age that he was? Why was it Yosef? Why did he have to get sold 4 times? To the Ishmaelim, to the Seicherim, to the Midyanim, and then to the Mitzrayim. Is that by chance? The Torah Kedosha tells us that piece of information. That means it was wichtig. Nem by the Shul, you get both. Okay, Zuk the Heilige Maharal. V'davka Yosef mebein shar echav. You see where that is, gentlemen? And it was Yosef HaTzadik. Ki ro sheyeh Yosef melech Moshe Mitzrayim. You know why Yosef was Zeicha? As we mentioned in the Zera Shimshon Shir, he ruled over himself, and therefore he ruled over others. Ruled over himself means he was kovish the chelek hachoimri, his body and his desires. Then Mitzrayim are known as chamor. Their koyach in the Tumah is ki Mitzrayim nikra chamor asher besar chamareim besorim. That's what it says in Yecheskel. Shtufei zimo. They were so into the flesh and the body, such balei taiva. So someone who could control his taiva would have the koyach to be able to control the taivas of all the people and eventually rule over the nation of balei taiva. Now, let's skip ahead. V'kulam, next paragraph. Yesh lahakshus lama hayat tzarich sheyosef b'Mitzrayim zman harbe. Why did he have to be there for such a long time? Lama lo yahurid ba'oisay shana v'yachlem parim miyad. Maybe let him go into Egypt. Pare has a dream. Nobody knows how to interpret that dream. No one knows kind of Eisnish, nor there Yosef. So, bingo, he's right there. Was there a reason, asked Maharal, that he had to be there from the age of 17 till the age of 30? Yes. Yes. Because everything that happens is dafka. Listen to this. Ve'ein ze kosher. Ki kvar yadua ki hatsura. Bais Medrash Hanar Yoser Goyver Chainer. When a boy is young, Nebuch, what taivas a boy has. Unfortunately, every single one of us went through that, right? Nebuch. The taivas that severtish besed, right?
I won't say something as a recording going on.
That's right. I'm also being very careful because I know I'm being recorded. But every nebuch for the 14 or 15, you have a teenage kid, he's 14 or 15 years old, the sudas that he goes through at that age of life with everything that's jumping around in his body and the change of etc. Zostevissen. Yosef went into Mitzrayim as a 17-year-old single good-looking boy with all the hormones and all the taivas that come along with a teenager, bidafka. So that As he develops his koyach of maturity, listen to this and pay attention to the Edelkeit. All of the taivas of Mitzrayim that are trying to get him, he's misgaber over all the taivas of Mitzrayim. That means whatever Egypt has to offer that could potentially excite him and make him want to do an Aveira, all of Egypt and all that it has to offer and all that he gets exposed to, and he's misgaber, and that affects him, and he's misgaber over that, he's literally being misgaber over Mitzrayim. He's being misgaber over himself when he's exposed to everything that Egypt is offering, and he's overcoming that. That means to say he internalizes the koyach of Mitzrayim and then rejects it. So he conquers Mitzrayim. As a 17-year-old, he's always acting like a nar. He's a 17-year-old. The Adraba Hatzura he betela etzel hachomer umishtabet tachtav. The tzura, he doesn't have a koyach to be misgaber over his taivas because the koyach within the individual is still not powerful enough. The oz goiver atzura lachomer u'moilech alev. Olive, and then the tzura, which means his sense of righteousness, his sense of morality, his sense of correctness is misgaber over his chelek hachomri, of his chelek hatayves, and his moilech. Hepech metchila asher achaymer melech u'bershusa v'nosan tzura v'shlema. The opposite when he's younger, that the chaymer is misgaber. Lekach, listen to this. Metchila haYosef eved leMitzrayim beis narusai. While he was still in the younger critical age, and the tzura was not totally sholem, he was an eved. Ad shoya ben shloishim. Ben shloishim legevura. Then he became a gibor, and then he was able to come out of Mitzrayim and be the gibor of Egypt. V'oz nehepech hadavar liyas Yosef moilech aleim. Shadavar zeh lefi metzia she Yosef moish aleim b'soif kasher teida mailas Yosef. We know the mile of Yosef, and that's what he said earlier. I'm going to go back now to what it says in the first paragraph when we said Dafka Yosef. After the bold letters, it says v'Yosef haya Kadosh v'nivdo min ha'arayis kashetir memaisa peitifar. Yosef was Kadosh, nivdal. So this process had to happen when he was 17 years old, 18 years old. It had to happen at those years. He should be misgaber over the koyach ha'chomer when it was its strongest. With the geresta tavis, with his biggest tavis, that's when he was a melech, and he was a melech over, like we said, all of whatever Egypt was trying to bring him down, he brought himself up and was melech over them. What he did internally to himself, with himself, ruchnias, manifested itself afterwards over the entire Egypt. What he did, what a person does within himself, that's the pach shemen. That's the pach shemen. That's the pach shemen. That's the hashem, the neshama. That's the koyach of kedusha inside that can't be tainted. That was Yosef HaTzadik's bringing out, right after all of those trying to be metamehim again and again and again, day in and day out, and he pushes aside, and he's successful in being misgaber over it. He becomes the melech. Once he's the melech, then he can lead his brothers and his family, and everybody can now go underneath his umbrella of malchus, and he can infuse them. They should eat his bread. They should be shaykh to him, because he has the koyach of his gabrus. Gans Mitzrayim est Yosef's bright. And we didn't see this part of the Zera Shimshon, but Yosef HaTzadik says, if you have an orla, you're not eating my bread. You're not taking that from me. Because my bread is shaykh to people that don't have an orla. Because my bread comes from a koyach of his gabrus over the Scheiner. You want to shtel zechzu to my food, you have to look like me. If not, you can starve. I'm not giving you anything unless you shtel zechzu to what I look like. That was the koyach. That's Yosef. That's the way he was during his reign, was Mitayr Mitzrayim. So when Klal Yisrael came there, they could be able to come into a place that they were protected from the Tum of Mitzrayim. So he saw to it to remove, to a certain extent, the Orla of Mitzrayim. So Klal Yisrael should be able to go in and not be contaminated by those Arevim. Tosad Yosef Oifkiton. Now, I want to tell you something else. The Dover Zeh, says the Maharal. Go down at the bottom. V'lefichach, right before that. V'lefichach, right before the last paragraph. Hoyer Yosef Eved Mitchila. He was an Eved. That means he was underneath the Shlita of Mitzrayim. He was an Eved to them, and rose above the Avdus to become a Melech. He was an Eved, a servant, who became a melech. Ad achakach yoytze lecheres legamri. Ubezeh hoya leYosef dimyan el klal Yisrael. What he did in his lifetime, be an eved and rule and reign and overcome your master and master your master. This was this meant. To be a master means to be the what sagt man in English? No, Yiddish was to have the control, right? To have the control, right? Ibitze hippen, to jump over the person who controls you. You control the person who controls you. That's what happened to Klal Yisrael. V'dimyin al Klal Yisrael. V'davar ze baruch ki nikra kol Yisrael al shem Yosef. She'eris Yosef layasa avla. Klal Yisrael is sometimes identified with Numen Yosef. Ki yesh dimyan liYosef el Klal Yisrael. Yosef is like the ganz Klal Yisrael can sich zustellen to Yosef. Lefichach ashe ira leKlal Yisrael ira liYosef. What had to happen to Klal Yisrael first happened to Yosef in a miniature. And then, meaning, Yosef, what happened to him was because that happened to Klal Yisrael. Okay? Ki Yosef tchilas eved leMitzrayim ba'achakach melech aleim. First he was an eved and then he was a melech. V'chein Yisrael hoyo yerido liYosef miyuchedes v'yerido liYisrael miyuchedes. V'dov is a movement. We became an eved, then afterwards we got out. V'oi take the godol hashkocha niflo. You have that? Third column. Take a look at the hashkocha, which was Yosef was sold to Avdus. First, right? First, he was sold. Hamidyanim machru oisai. The kama oinius. Amar Reb Yudin. Arba. His brothers sold him to Yishmaelim. The Yishmaelim leSoichrim. Soichrim leMidyanim. Midyanim leMitzrayim. Says, there's more. Says the Heilige Maharal. Yishmaelim are from Avram Avinu. Yosef couldn't go from being Yosef straight down to Mitzrayim. That didn't work. It was too much of a contrast. He had to go down Madrega after Madrega. First, Birubazeh. Kiloi hoyo rosh Yosef mechezkosai rishon asher be'eretz Canaan bechashivas haYosef godol ma'oid ve'achakach le'eved nimko Yosef. He couldn't go from being a Eretz Canaan. He needed to go step by step. The first person who were able to be on top of him was an Abraham child, Avram Avinu's kid, Yishmael. Hair came from Avram, and he comes from Avram. That's why Yishmael, who came from Keturah, from Hagar, Ashes Avram, the second wife, right? The Hagar. Different stages. Yishmael who Korav el Mitzrayim. On the one hand, Yishmael Hagar came from Mitzrayim. So Yishmael was a go-between. He was a bridge between Avram's kids and Mitzrayim. Then they went to Seicherim. Seicher is like a Tautav, is also a Yishmael, but he's his business one Yishmael. And then Midyanim. And then he went into Mitzrayim. Level after level, that's the way he went in. Now, one more point I'm going to share with you on Amid Beis. Yosef understood that he needed to go to Egypt. He needed to go to Egypt. And that there was no way that Klal Yisrael would survive unless he went to Egypt. There was no way. He knew that. It had to be him. It had to be him. It had to be his koiches. It had to be his gabrus. So therefore the Maharal is of the opinion that the brothers were not held accountable for the golus, that the golus happened because they sold him. Although there are mefarshim that say the golus happened because they sold him, avad, it was a sin to sell your brother, and asara haruge malchus happened because of that. But don't think that the golus happened because he was sold, because he had to go. Therefore, says the Maharal, he wanted to send him, I don't know if it's over here, I saw it in the Maharal, but he said, therefore he wanted to send his father a message. What did he send his father? He sent him 10 chamayrim, 10 donkeys. Let's take a look. What's stated in the Torah Kedosha. The Oviv Shalach Kazois. Kazois means just like this. Asara chamayrim noisim metuv Mitzrayim. 10 donkeys carrying all the good. You know what that is? My 10 brothers were like 10 donkeys. Meaning, just like the donkey has no idea what he's carrying on his back, he just knows he's transporting from one to there. My brothers had no idea what they were doing. It was already nigzer min hashamayim. The 10 donkeys were like, not that Chas Shalom I'm calling my brother a donkey. No. I want to just tell you, Abba, a message. I have no tightness on my brothers. Kol Tuv Mitzrayim, all the good of Mitzrayim that's on there, does a donkey know what he's carrying? He has no idea. But he carries it. Why? Because that's what the master says. Hashem Yisbarach is the master. He makes sure that everything goes from one place to the other place. How does he do it? He sends sometimes with a chamor. That's how I got here. The message is, I have no tightness on my brothers. You shouldn't be upset with them because I have no tightness on them. It came from the Eibishter. It came from the Rabbi Shalom. And that's why Dafka sent Yena Messer. That was the message of Vela Oviv Sholach Kazois. Asara Chamayrim. That's it. With Asar Chamayrim, now we know that Yosef HaTzadik deserves to be there. Why? Because he has to be the prototype. He has to be the one who's going to fear the derech for all of them. That's what the Maharal says. Okay, Shivim, why did it have to be 70? That we'll learn Be'ez Hashem next week. And other Inyanim next week is Asar B'Tevis. It's a fast day. So Be'ez Hashem, that's going to be on Friday. But when we give the shir, it's already going to be Asar B'Tevis. It's the yard side of my Rebbe, Scheiner Levracha. So we'll have to give up a special shir Lila Nishmas the Rebbe Scheiner Levracha. Okay, yeah. Yes.
That nakuda of the bus with a donkey carrying, that applies to everyone. Tell everyone with their own personal lives. We have no idea what we're going through.
That's true.
And therefore,
well said. And
therefore, we just gotta carry it, and we just gotta get there and get it off.
Correct.
So, Rabbi, there's a question: did Yaakov ever know what happened to Yosef that his brother sold him? This sounds like yes, almost, right?
L'chayra. Did he ever know? Probably he knew, but he understood, like Yosef was sending him this message that was from the Eibishter. Right. So therefore he never got involved.